Schools reconvene in Barbuda next Monday. Trinidad police hunt for a man who videotaped a child performing a sexual act on him. And 950 workers are trapped in a gold mine in South Africa. This is Point FM's nightly news for Thursday, the first 3 years in politics. Today marked Mr. Byrd's final debate on a budget in the House of Representatives. Celeste, in endorsing the budget, credited the government for capturing the vision for a modern Antigua and Barbuda, saying the Prime Minister was well on the way to achieving the goal of enriching the lives of Antiguans and Barbudans despite numerous obstacles. Reflecting on the hardships the world endured following the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks in the United States, the Rural East MP recalled the dark days that were predicted for tourism industries worldwide. But despite the bleak predictions, Celeste says there was an upsurge of the sector.
There were 600 billion international arrivals or long-stay tourists in the world. Contrary to the forecast, tourism growth galloped, and in 2012, international tourist arrivals or long-stay tourists exceeded 1 trillion. In 2016, long-stay tourists worldwide totaled 1,235 million. Mr. Speaker, the point I am making here is that tourism is not as fickle as it is made out to be. Not only is it among the largest industry worldwide, it has demonstrated a greater stability than world trade. It is, Mr. Speaker, an industry in which we can place confidence if properly managed.
Celeste, a former Minister of Tourism, views tourism as an integral component to the government's quest of transforming the country into an economic powerhouse and is cautioning against any attempts to abandon the sector.
I was listening to a program on ABS television and I heard a Caribbean technocrat suggesting that we should diversify away from tourism. Mr. Speaker, I wish to advise and even to warn that nothing is further away from the truth. Mr. Speaker, we, as many other countries in the Caribbean, face the challenge of what I call the tyranny of size. We are small in physical size, small in population, and limited in mineral resources. Mr. Speaker, we have to devise a way to navigate the turbulent economic seas to achieve our goal.
Mr. Byrd advised that a good plan executed now is better than a perfect plan executed later. He told the House of Representatives that the country's economical survival is linked to tourism. He, however, revealed that while our future survival is dependent on tourism, mass tourism should be avoided. In other news, almost 5 months after Hurricane Irma decimated Barbuda, education officials have given the green light for school to reopen on the sister isle on 5th February 2018. A team led by Director of Education Claire Brown traveled to Barbuda on Wednesday and met with officials in charge of the rebuilding process. They also held discussions with residents, following which it was decided to resume classes to accommodate the 80 students currently residing there with their parents. The team's visit was preceded by another visit last week by the School Attendance Counseling Unit. Director Claire Brown explains that following an assessment, the ministry concluded that classes will resume for students of both primary and secondary school ages.
We made the decision that these are the things that we were going to do. We were going to open school based on what if we have some 80 or so students there, then they need to be educated. And we made the decision that the first Monday in February, we will throw the doors of the St. Mark Chesney George Secondary to accommodate both the secondary and primary students there. So they're going to go to school at the same time. We have also decided that school for the primary school on Barbuda would run
home. There are regulations that must be adhered to where public school teachers and students are concerned.
When the students and teachers came to Antigua, then each of those teachers were given a posting note. So they were assigned to schools here in Antigua. The teachers cannot just get up and just go back and call back and say that they are on Barbuda. They have to be reassigned to the school on Barbuda. Likewise, parents are not just supposed to take their children and then we find out that they're there, because they have to get, just as when they came to Antigua, they got a note from the Ministry of Education to assign them to whatever school that they are currently in on Antigua, then they will get a note.
The Ministry of Education has received a commitment from the Board of Education that all supplies needed to aid teachers in their lessons will be provided. The director says this is the first step towards returning the education system in Barbuda to where it was before Hurricane Irma.
If we don't start, then we will not ever start. So we have to start somewhere. We begin to creep before we walk. The situation is not going to be perfect from day one, but we will get back to a place of normalcy eventually.
Director of Education, Claire Brown. More charges were brought against the Bulgarian man who hacked several ATMs in Antigua and Montserrat last December. Martin Dmitriov Dachensky, who defrauded a local bank of almost $28,000, was charged with 3 additional counts of larceny by police on Wednesday. He's accused of hacking into 2 separate ATMs located on High Street and Thames Street and stole close to $5,000 from one machine and over $18,000 from another, according to police. He's further accused of hacking into an ATM located at a business place in All Saints Road, where he stole almost $5,000 from that ATM. The crimes were committed between December 13 and 15, 2017. The ATM fraudster later fled the jurisdiction to neighboring Montserrat. However, he was apprehended there and later returned to Antigua. He was charged with larceny and was remanded to prison on his first court appearance. His committal date was set for March 2018. The Immigration Department has begun accepting applications from immigrants to close gaps in their residency statuses that may prevent them from qualifying for citizenship. The amnesty period began last week and will end on May 18th. A window at the Immigration Department has been established that will provide confirmation of the upgraded status. Applicants will be charged a processing fee. Cabinet ratified a decision for amnesty to be granted to persons who have spent 7 years residing lawfully in the country but may have gaps in their residency. Once it is determined that gaps exist, immigrants are normally ineligible for citizenship. But recent complaints by immigrants who became disqualified prompted the government to take steps towards changing the regulation. Director of the National Office of Disaster Services, Fillmore Mullen, is threatening to publish a list of persons on the Sister Isle that have received generators. The threat comes as the head of the local disaster management agency expresses anger over comments made implicating his office in illegal activity. He said what is being circulated is that many of the generators intended for the Sister Isle were not delivered there. Accusations he finds disturbing.
If it costs me my job, I'm going to publish the list of names of persons who signed for generator in Barbuda and the total number of generators that we received by way of donations. It's getting to the point where people are saying things, and if you live in Antigua, you know that any political opportunity that is created is utilized. And now that you're implicating my office in a falsehood, and I'm going to blow it out of the water.
Tension is rising between Nods and the Barbuda Council. On Tuesday, there was a standoff between council members and Defence Force personnel after at least 5 council members and several residents reportedly showed up to take control of the Barbuda Council office. Though they were told that the Defence Force was in charge, those who showed up
and a facility that have not been officially turned over to council that is under repairs. Sounds to me that it was done with deliberate intent.
The Nods director has indicated that if such actions persist, then the agency will have to put measures in place to protect its staff working in Barbuda.
If it is that we are going to be rebuilding Barbuda in a hostile environment, then we will have to protect life and limb on the ground. And so while it is true that we do not wish to have any confrontation with any council in Barbuda, we have been assigned a specific responsibility, and we will carry out that responsibility.
That's the Director of the National Office of Disaster Services, Fillmore Mullin. Cabinet has begun discussing a pension for one of this country's national hero. Cricketing legend Sir Vivian Richards was made a national hero in 2014 along with former Prime Minister Sir Lester Bird. Though receiving the country's highest national honour, Sir Viv receives no material benefit. Now the Cabinet of Antigua and Barbuda is re-examining a promise made in 2014.
I don't think Sir Vivian would have had the type of income stream to enjoy a pension from either one of the pension streams that we just discussed. And so I think part of the legislative framework, I don't want to go into too much details because I don't want to oost the jurisdiction of the Parliament, but part of what has to happen is that given that the government is desirous of ensuring that he enjoys every material benefit in his winter years and comfort, we will have to enact specific legislation that allows him to be granted a pension and with other supporting facilities as well.
Cabinet spokesperson, the Honourable Melford Nicholas, stated that the Attorney General's office was instructed to begin crafting legislation that will be taken to Parliament and once passed will allow the government to grant Sir Vivian Richards certain benefits. This will advance once the Appropriations Bill becomes law. The same does not apply for Sir Lester Bird, who is already a beneficiary.
In the case of Sir Lester Bird, however, he would have not been in the same position. He would have been a contributor to one of the pension schemes, and based on the pension issues that affect parliamentarians post their service in government, he would have already been in a position to enjoy some of those. So it is not as critical for Sir Lester as it will be for Sir Vivian Richards.
As the Cabinet spokesperson, the Honourable Melford Nicholas. It is now 13 minutes on the 7 o'clock hour, evening time in Antigua and Barbuda and the rest of the Eastern Caribbean. Coming up next, regional developments, and we will tell you that the Trinidad police is hunting a man who videotaped a child performing a sexual act on him. We'll have that story and more, and we'll also tell you what's happening on the international scene. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for staying with us. If you're just joining us, a call for greater emphasis to be placed on tourism from former Prime Minister Lester Bird in his final budget presentation. And schools reconvene in Barbuda next Monday. Turning now to regional news, police in Trinidad are on the hunt for a man who allegedly videotaped a child performing a sexual act on him. Officers confirmed on Wednesday evening that the child's grandmother, upon learning of the video, made a report to the Four Roads police station. The child's mother is assisting the TTPS Child Protection Unit with investigations. Police reports say the man was severely beaten by neighbors but escaped and is currently on the run. According to reports, the video was said to be recorded in Diego Martin. Members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Child Protection Unit are advising members of the public in Trinidad to desist from putting into circulation or causing to be circulated graphic images or pornographic material involving children, whether on social media or via the traditional electronic and print media or in any other form whatsoever. They said to engage in the distribution or circulation of sexually graphic or explicit material involving minors constitutes an offense under Section 41 of the Children Act. The opposition United Workers' Party in Dominica is proposing short-term measures. It is urging the government to bring young people to engage in agricultural productivity and making agriculture a high-priority subject in primary, secondary and tertiary education programs are included in the recommendations being made by the country's opposition leader and UWP leader Lennox Linton, while also identifying, developing and encouraging the use of appropriate technology in the agricultural production process are among other proposals being put forward. The Dominica government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, is distributing some $18 million to an estimated 4,000 farmers around the country as part of an initiative to revive the agriculture sector post-Maria. However, Linton, in a media statement, alleges that the current World Bank-funded social protection and/or farm rehabilitation assistance program is designed to facilitate manipulation by ruling party politicians intent on abusing it to secure votes. He advises that prompt action is required to effect a robust development program for the financing, production and marketing of agricultural commodities. The Dutch government today unveiled a €2.48 million plan to compensate tourism businesses on 2 Caribbean islands left reeling after last year's hurricane. Deputy Interior Minister Raymond Knops said he saw with his own eyes the devastating effect that Hurricane Irma had on the islands of Saba and St. Eustatius. Under the scheme, businesses which relied entirely on tourism, such as hotels, restaurants and bars, taxi services and even diving schools, could claim up to 25% of their expected annual turnover in compensation. The tourism sector is an important provider of jobs and income for families, Knops said in a statement, referring to the islands which are part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The scheme would help affected companies to bridge the difficult period during reconstruction. The Dutch government announced in November that some €67 million will be given to the 2 small islands to help with reconstruction. Power lines were downed, trees uprooted and buildings torn apart when Irma whipped across the islands, including St. Martin, as a rare Category 5 storm in September. According to figures from the National Statistics Body, some 11,000 tourists visit St. Eustatius annually, while 9,000 visitors travel to Saba. Both islands are popular diving spots. In developments now internationally, about 950 workers remain trapped in a gold mine in South Africa after a storm caused a power cut, preventing them from getting out. Without electricity, lifts could not bring the night shift workers to the surface, but they appear to be fine, according to a spokesman for their employer. He said about 65 miners have so far been rescued and all are accounted for. Trade union officials said they feared that the lives of the miners trapped since Wednesday night were at risk. South Africa is a leading gold producer, but the industry has often been accused of poor safety record. The Beatrix mine is in Welcome Town, about 180 miles southwest of Johannesburg. It is owned by Sibane Stillwater mining firm. It has 23 levels going down 3,280 feet below ground. The Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union said its concerns about dehydration and a lack of food had been heightened by the sheer number of workers trapped. South Africa has some of the world's deepest and most dangerous mines. More than 80 fatalities were recorded in the country's mines in 2017. A senior White House official says a Republican-drafted memo alleging FBI bias against U.S. President Donald Trump will be released on Friday. Mr. Trump is expected to declassify the document and send it to Congress for release, according to U.S. media. The FBI has voiced grave concerns about the release of the memo, which may have redactions. It reportedly says the FBI misled an intelligence court to obtain a warrant to spy on the Trump election campaign. Democrats say the memo is a ruse to discredit a federal inquiry into links between President Trump's presidential campaign and Russia. The four-page document was compiled by aides for House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, who served on the Trump team during his White House transition. It reportedly accuses the FBI and Justice Department of misleading a judge in March last year while seeking to one of the largest such schemes in the world, and is likely to be popular with rural voters. India presently spends a little over 1% of its GDP on public health care, one of the lowest in the world. The announcement came in the annual budget aimed at boosting growth ahead of a general election next year. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley also allocated billions of dollars for health, education, social security and rural infrastructure. He said the flagship health insurance scheme would cover more than 100 million poor families and provide 500,000 rupees in medical coverage for each family annually. The BBC's Sutik Biswas also says although it is laudable to give medical coverage to the poor in a country where quality healthcare costs are prohibitive, what is not clear is how the program is going to be designed to protect the poor from being exploited by private hospitals. India's private healthcare system is largely unregulated, opaque, and often unscrupulous. It also overcharges patients with impunity, according to correspondents. This was a budget for the rural economy, with distressed farmers and villagers emerging as the biggest winners. But the finance minister also outlined incentives for others that will help boost growth, create jobs, and promote private investment. That's a look at regional and international developments this Thursday evening. Stay tuned. The Weather Report is next.
Local forecast for Antigua and Barbuda for tonight, Thursday night, into tomorrow, Friday, the 2nd of February, 2018. Relatively stable atmospheric conditions will continue to restrict the formation of significant clouds and the shower activity over Antigua and Barbuda the rest of the leewards for the next 24 hours. So we're looking for partly cloudy skies tonight with a slight chance of a light overnight shower. Then tomorrow, partly sunny skies in general with a slight chance of an early morning shower. The winds will blow out of the east-northeast at average speeds between 17 to 24 kilometers per hour or 9 to 13 knots, peaking to an average of 28 kilometers per hour or 15 knots over coastal waters and elevated terrain. The seas will be moderate with heights of 1.5 meters to 1.8 meters or 5 to 6 feet. Beachgoers, mainly along the eastern coastal areas, are still advised to be very cautious. Our maximum temperatures got up as high as 30 degrees Celsius today or 86 Fahrenheit. Look for your overnight lows to be cool tonight at 22 Celsius or 72 degrees Fahrenheit. No rainfall was recorded at the V.C. Bird International Airport for the month of February up to 2 p.m. this afternoon. The sun will rise tomorrow at 22 minutes to 7 and sets tomorrow afternoon at 3 minutes after 6. I'm Leonard Josiah reporting from the Antigua and Barbuda Meteorological Services.
And so we end Point FM's nightly news for Thursday, 1st February 2018. Now for a recap of the headlines that made the news. A call for greater emphasis to be placed on tourism from former Prime Minister Lester Bird in his final budget debate. Schools reconvene in Barbuda next Monday. Trinidad police hunt for a man who videotaped a child performing a sexual act on him. And 950 workers are trapped in a gold mine in South Africa. We thank you so much for joining us for this Thursday edition of our news. On behalf of all of us here at Point FM, I am Phil George wishing you a pleasant evening, and be sure to join me again tomorrow. But for now, at 7 o'clock evening time, we say goodbye.
You're listening to 99.1 Point FM.